good. All right, we are live today on the Strength and Philosophy Cast. We have been beaten down and told that we need to change the name. Not happening. Bow down to no one. Will not kiss the ring. We are brought to you today, as always, by Killcliff. Our man Oscar Hoy slinging all kinds of Killcliff, representing Team Viking. Also, Travis Fox, the handy-dandy trusty man from Nike Weightlifting, who can take care of all your Nike weightlifting needs, specifically shoes. He has promised me a 20% discount code for this podcast. He has not delivered. Travis, you're on blast. There's at least 300 people right now that are like, okay. All right. Today, we are joined by Jared Byczko, the co-founder, operator, entrepreneur, connoisseur de fitness, OG CrossFit gym owner.
I don't know about
former
OG, but
I mean,
middle OG.
You've been around for a while, and that is what people in India are commonly going to refer to as CrossFit Naptown. Although I understand some changes are coming your way as you guys continue to expand and combine and go from there. So we'll get into that just a little bit, but give the lovely folks at home or on the road a little bit of your personal history.
Cool. So Jared Byczko, born and raised in Indiana, Northwest Indiana, so Maryville, Indiana, for those who are listening or watching the region. Shout out the region. Always disliked Indianapolis my whole life because I was from the region, that little tiny area. We always came down here, played soccer my entire life since I was 4 years old. So
starting the podcast about community.
There was probably a mutual hate for the people in the region.
Well, exactly. There still is. Right. So, but now Indianapolis is my home. Coming full swing back to community. Love it. Never thought I'd call it home, but it is my home, and I'll say that to anyone, even my parents, even though they'll break their heart a little bit. So. I was up in Maryville, played soccer my entire life, also ran track in high school, played a little baseball in high school, played a little basketball, kicked on the football team, so dabbled in a little bit of everything.
Now, were you teammates with a solid Boilermaker, Maryville graduate, Mike Neal?
Oh yeah, he was around then.
Currently holding it down, still in the NFL.
Oh yeah, he used to be in the weight room all the time.
What about Riley and Dexter Larimore?
Yeah,
Riley would be a friend of mine. Dexter would just be the little brother.
So
he's a huge individual.
Yeah, Dexter's awesome. Riley, I love Riley as well. He actually was the first person to put me in check. Pretty much
physically
threw me into a locker.
Yeah,
my freshman year,
very strong man. I don't know if you've seen him recently. Total transition. Went from Division I defensive lineman, most yoked human being you've ever seen, eating thousands of eggs in a setting. Triathlete.
Really?
Yep. He's up in Dublin, Ohio. Probably weighs like buck 70, buck 80.
Didn't know that.
You wouldn't recognize him.
Interesting.
So
anyways, Maryville led me down to college scholarships to play soccer at IUPUI here. Go Jaguars. So if you guys, I know there's a lot of Jaguars floating around in the Indianapolis community still. That led me into loving Indianapolis, getting to know the city 6 years ago, 2000, actually longer than that, 2007, graduated college, and I decided to kind of travel around a little bit, try different jobs, moved to the city, Chicago. That was a place to be at the time, moved there right away, February 2008, and then did a couple jobs. I always joke around that the best job I ever did was inside sales with a logistics company because I learned everything I didn't want to do in life. So that was one of the best things right there to kind of figure it out from the start. Got to the point where I was calling my mom just about every day. I was like, I hate my job. I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. And she's like, just quit. Finally, 9 months later, I quit, found another job, and then it kind of led me to I could go deeper later about
your
all
mom
that,
was like, Jared, just move back into our basement and pick your nose until you're 30.
Pretty much.
Or maybe she encouraged you to be a productive part of society.
More so the latter part.
Well, and so it's funny you mentioned that because I actually had the opportunity to meet your mom and dad in Val. Was it Valpo?
Yep.
That CrossFit competition.
Yep.
And they were like, well, I love it because I have a mom. She'll be the first person to always comment on Facebook. Like,
oh yeah,
I get it, Mom. Like, you know me, you love me. You don't need to tell Facebook that you love me. But it's not going to change. But your mom was very excited that you were competing at a local CrossFit competition. Very supportive. Like, they were there in the gym, cheering, rooting you on. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah. So I mean, kind of taking that my parents obviously supported me all throughout. And, when we went down the venture of starting CrossFit Naptown, many people don't know this. I actually joked about it at our 5-year anniversary last year that I don't even know if my parents know this, but they've been on the hook for the last 5 years as our guarantees of our lease. And so I kind of slipped them a couple of pieces.
Yeah.
I kind of slipped them a couple of pieces of paper and said, sign this and back us. So they don't really know that until December 31st this year that they're financially staked right now into the company. So. And
I've done some dirt in my life. I've never put my parents on the hook for a large amount of money.
My mom knew this happened. I actually honestly don't think my dad knew that happened, but my mom was supportive of it.
It's crazy
she
how,
in us, so.
As a parent now, I can totally see how kids will pit you against each other.
Oh, yeah.
There's plenty of things that mom and dads don't know that the other one knows. Why? Let's talk about this a little bit though. So, just to fill in some of the gaps here, you and I met right after you had essentially opened CrossFit Naptown. When I say right after, I'd say within 6 months.
Yeah.
Like it was pretty early in the game. There really was nothing going on gym-wise downtown, other than there's like the Globo gyms and like the big box, but there was really no CrossFit presence going on downtown. I was fresh out of Purdue.
Yeah.
You actually started working with you and Peter and Rachel,
Yep.
who's still a coach for you guys.
Yep.
Before I was even in my own facility, there was
an IFAS, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yep.
IFAS on the north side was where I had the first weightlifting club. I was reaching out, trying to get people who I thought would be into weightlifting, like just to give them pointers and tips. And the CrossFit community thing was growing. There was obviously some interest from that community. Invited you guys up, said, hey, why don't you come up here and live, see if I can help you out with something. Rachel broke the mirror on like her first lift, threw a barbell through the wall, knocked it down, hole in the wall glass.
All those fail videos you see right. I saw that in real life.
Yeah, which is great. I like on a rare occasion that I see her, somehow it always manages to come up.
As it should.
But so at that time, like I was trying to get into my own space, which was the first gym that I really owned, a gym that remains unnamed. And we came down and just started working together. And one of the things like fascinating me was the way that you and Peter, and to fill in that gap, Peter,
we can talk about that.
Your businessman and friend and soccer connoisseur, the whole thing, hometown.
You guys grew up together?
Yeah, Maryville High School, same middle school, same everything.
Right. But you guys like took the Naptown business or the space, the original Naptown space, which you still have, and took it on a suicide lease. And just tell the people what the hell that means.
Yeah, so, fill in some of those gaps a little bit. It was 2011, and I was actually living in St. Croix at the time. So I kind of took like a reverse retirement. I was working a job with PlayStation, and this job with PlayStation allowed me the opportunity to work hard for 9 months, like straight direct, every single weekend, every single day we're on the road. But it also gave me about 3 or 4 months off, so it was a contract job of that source. Finally, after doing that for 3 years, traveling around the country, playing video games with kids essentially at some of the best events, I decided to kind of get my life together. So by life together, I moved out to St. Croix, lived with a college teammate of mine out there for a little while, and then that's when Peter started doing CrossFit. He was actually at CrossFit Chicago with Rudy Tapala, Rudy was one of the first 100 CrossFit gyms.
Real OG.
Yeah, he's
super nice guy, by the way.
So he was a level 2 coach before the new level 2s came out. So he was pretty much the equivalent of a level 4 coach now, where you had to literally go out and take a practical exam in front of Glassman or some of the higher ups, and then either you passed or failed. And the fail rate of that was like 92% or something. So he was one of, I think, less than 200 people that had the actual legit first-time level 2. So that's how Peter started learning as, is our very first mentor. So Peter came down to St. Croix, kicked my ass in a couple workouts. I was, we talked about triathlons earlier. I was actually training for triathlons myself out in St. Croix, going out to the ocean, swimming every day.
This sounds miserable.
Biking. It was beautiful. It was,
how did you survive that?
Yeah, it was amazing. I kind of joke all the time. The hard part with living on an island, if you guys have never lived on an island before.
Believe it or not, I haven't.
Okay.
Well, does West Lafayette count? I mean, you got to cross the river,
Maybe,
it
but
stinks.
my idea would be that you can't leave.
Pretty much.
Like, there's no escape.
Exactly. So it becomes a small high school on this island, and then after 6 months, I'm like, this isn't going to survive. So
You kissed all the girls.
No, actually,
Some of
no.
the boys.
Yeah, there you go. So Peter came down and kicked my ass in a couple workouts. He was doing this thing called CrossFit. I'd heard about it before, and we've done a couple workouts back in college in 07, 08. Never really kind of dug it that much to where I jumped right into it. Never felt the passion wasn't there right away. But he did a couple workouts and destroyed me, and I thought I was in great shape. And I was like, what is this CrossFit stuff? So that's when I started doing more research. I remember training to do Fran. So I built a protocol for 3 weeks just so I could do the workout Fran, which then now I kind of laugh at it all to sort of see where I was in that time. Anyways, then we started talking about opening up our own gym. The first idea was let's open up a CrossFit gym in St. Croix. As most listeners could probably see, that the logistics of that didn't really make sense.
Rogue wasn't a thing yet.
Rogue wasn't a thing.
You can get a whole rig to St. Croix right now from Rogue in 36 hours.
Yes, back then it might have taken planes, trains, and automobiles to get some fitness equipment there.
Rogue probably owns an offshore barge company that's just stocked, ready to go.
They probably have it somewhere. The shipping's going to be a little expensive. That's not going to ship for free.
But now,
we digress.
Now there's a CrossFit gym there. So they about 2 years ago one opened up in St. Croix. Anyways, I decided, I was like, well, let's get life together. So I moved back to Chicago, started working out across Chicago with Peter. Rudy was super, super kind to let me kind of work under his wing a little bit, free of charge. I don't know if he ever knows this, but he never did charge my account, which he said
By
he was going.
accident.
Yeah, so I was there just helping out, doing whatever I could. We started talking about the idea of opening up a gym. And this is, one thing I'd certainly want to talk about was mentorship. And the first thing he did was he said, go to the library, get the book called The E-Myth, and read The E-Myth. Let me know what you learned from it. Let's talk about it, and then let's sit and have lunch. So 3 weeks later, I finished the book. Peter and I met with him for lunch. We had a small little business plan of us opening up a CrossFit gym. He ripped our business plan apart, told us to start all over, gave us all these questions. We went back 3 weeks later, met with him again for lunch, bought him lunch again. By the way, if you ever have a mentor or take someone out, always buy them coffee, always buy them lunch. That's kind of the consulting fee. So then we're going to open up a gym in Chicago and decided the square footage, cost of living is just astronomical. And that's when we're like, well, let's use our networks here in Indianapolis. So we're taking a mega bus down to the city every weekend. Peter actually had a full-time job in Chicago at the time, and then that's when we...
What was Peter doing for a full-time job?
Marketing. So he worked for a marketing firm.
This is insane for me to believe that Peter, did he wear professional...
Yeah, I mean, he had to be business casual. Yeah.
I don't believe it. There's got
so
it
was hilarious because we go back now, 2011, May, June, July, and we can look at emails from him sending from his work email, hey, what about this name for a CrossFit gym? Or hey, what about this for this? And then it's just funny because he was working while working as we were kind of devising the plan to open up this gym. So we looked at a bunch of spaces. We had a letter of intent on one space. It was actually on Walnut and the Cultural Trail. So it's I think it's something IU over there now, sort of by that Zesco food company. And we were getting ready on a Friday morning to go sign. We get a phone call that Friday morning, and they're like, yeah, the landlord doesn't want a fitness center there. This deal's done. And we spent 3 weeks getting that together.
Right.
And we're like, all right, that sucks. So then we talked to the Stutz building. We had a lease letter of intent with the Stutz building. We're going to do a small little space there, 2,000 square feet. Luckily, we never signed that because we would have outgrown that very quickly. So long story short, we drove around the city trying to find spaces. There was a lot of spaces available, just not what we were looking for. And eventually found our 609 North Delaware Street, and it's over 5,500 square feet, and we knew we couldn't afford it, and we were kind of gambling at the time. We said, let's go for it. The cool part about Peter, we complement each other really well because he's fine with being awkward and negotiating. I'm more of the kind of reserved individual, so he called the guy. I was like, hey, this is what we're doing. We're interested. We met with him. It was the broker from Cassidy Turley at the time. And he pretty much told us, he's like, look, the FBI just moved out of this building. They've been here for 20 years. The landlord doesn't plan on touching it, doing anything. You guys can have this building for 6 months, $500 a month for 6 months, and then we'll talk to you in January and see what happens. So he's like, make a business. If you make it successful and you can pay rent, we'll renegotiate a lease. And luckily, from day one, we were able to get people in the door. So,
do you know who's looked at your building since it's up for lease again?
I do. Yes, I do. A lot of fitness centers.
Brian, do you know? Or is theory?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Anyway.
So, yeah, what's interesting is, coming 6 years later, we renegotiated at least, and build ourselves into a 5-year lease after that 6 months shotgun lease of the $500 a month. And then we had a step ladder lease. So over the last 5 years or 6 years, our lease has slowly gotten higher and higher and higher. And the square footage is perfect. It's what we want, but the price of square foot that we're paying now is it's high. If I tell people,
Oh, just tell the whole world.
I can't.
So here's
they flip out.
The other thing is they would flip out.
People flip out when they know how much we're paying right now.
Well,
It's a lot. So,
yeah, I mean,
but so we're just like, you know what, we need to make a change, and that's what we're doing now. We're in the midst of consolidating construction. Finally, don't even get me started on that whole topic of contractors and architects, but we're consolidating to our 922 capital space, and we have 2 other spaces over there for our program.
So give us an idea here, just because. Well, let's start with: are you guys, when you consolidate to your downtown space?
Yep.
Okay, so you have the Delaware location, the
Correct.
Capitol location,
Correct.
the
Yep.
Broad Ripple location,
Yep.
and now the Delaware is CrossFit Naptown. The Broad Ripple is CrossFit
technically,
on Trail.
I know, right? It's confusing. No, it truly is. And from a branding perspective, we struggled with this for the last 2 or 3 years. So the way the business is structured is we're Naptown Fitness.
Okay.
Naptown Fitness is our parent. That's our whole entire company. And then you have Naptown Fitness Monon, which is our Broad Ripple location. At each, and this is something we'll kind of dive into later about, where CrossFit's going, but we changed this 2.5 years ago where we built out our new website. We're now Naptown Fitness, and then our programs are CrossFit, is Swift, which is our boot camp, our high intensity 45-minute class, our yoga, practice in the yoga studio, and then we have some our Naptown Barbell.
Yeah. Why is everyone
Naptown
talking about
Barbell Club. We've got endurance.
Like, we don't
program.
want to talk about that.
I know, right?
Come on.
So we've got different pieces from there as well. So our 3 main programs is the CrossFit, yoga, and Swift as we take ourselves through. So Capital is technically Naptown Fitness Capital, and then that's why we're getting rid. So we're consolidating. We're Naptown Fitness Capital, Naptown Fitness Monon, and every location will have all of our programs.
So
And that's where the kind of branding issue's been.
let's
so
go.
far.
Let's go ahead and get into the CrossFit name.
Love
okay, because I talked about this on the podcast on the why I love CrossFit.
Do you really love CrossFit though?
Yeah, I do, for the reasons that I laid out in an hour worth of podcasting. But there's
people who always ask.
yeah,
They'll be like,
it's
do
okay.
you really?
It's okay,
Are you
right?
sure?
Like that, it's fine. Like whatever. It's great because then it opens a conversation.
It was a great episode. I love it. You guys all did a great job talking.
We can discuss like all. The point is, so like this is relevant right now to our political climate, right? Where we have the left and the right, okay, and they're both talking about why they're doing a thing, but they're not asking questions to each other, right? About why do you do this, why do you do that, and there's no communication, there's no learning, there's no understanding. Okay, now obviously talking about fitness is not as extreme in terms of like importance, but I want to be in an environment where we can talk openly and ask questions about why do you do CrossFit, why do you do weightlifting, why do you do, and how do the businesses overlap, and what can we learn from each other? Like that's the idea of the conversation, and that's honestly the reason that Jared is on the podcast, is because we've been having these conversations centered around the fitness community since our relationship began.
I mean, we meet once every 3 months. or so?
Exactly. And it's not always structured. It's, hey, what do you do this? What do you do that? And to be honest, like, you're the perfect person to come on this podcast, because I guarantee you can remember when I said, I'm opening up a gym 2 blocks away from yours, and I'm thinking about affiliating.
Yeah.
Remember, we sat in your office, me, you, and Peter, and I went through, like, here's the pros and the cons. I don't know if I'm going to do this. Here's what I like about it. Here's what I don't. Right? Like, we went through that whole thing.
I remember that.
But anyway, I digress. So let's get to, we've seen like a large, large may not even, locally, I'll use the local market because I'm more in tune with that than the national market, but locally, meaning the surrounding Indianapolis, the greater Indianapolis area, we've seen a lot of people not necessarily de-affiliate, but separate their name from CrossFit. Mm-hmm. Okay, so a lot of the local gyms have dropped the CrossFit portion to their thing. They still advertise CrossFit like on their website, maybe, or through their hashtags or whatever the hell it may be. They're like, why do you think that is? Like, why are people dropping the name?
Yeah, so I mean, kind of talk about the first thing you said. Fitness is fitness. Whether you're doing CrossFit, whether you're doing weightlifting, whether you're riding a bike, whether you're jogging, whether you're running, like doing a boot camp class, we support all of that. And the reason I say that is because you can't just have one program and one brand of CrossFit because you pigeonhole yourself, right? You back yourself into a corner, and then people who have gone to a CrossFit gym, so people who don't know, all CrossFit gyms are independently owned. So there are no rules and standards necessarily how to run that gym. So you can go to a gym in downtown that it has structured classes where you just come in as you want, and then a coach is coaching a class, and you can go to a gym in California and they're just like, all right, there's a workout on the whiteboard, do it.
Right, and there's going to be no coaching, no guidance. You're there just to use the equipment.
And just don't get me wrong, I've traveled, I've been there, I've dropped into gyms, and I've seen gyms, I've seen coaches, and I'm just like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like, how are you teaching that? Like, and I don't tell people, when I go to a gym, I'm not like, hey, I own 3 gyms downtown Indianapolis. I just go in and get a workout in and drop in and just kind of check out the environment.
Heaven forbid you're there to like work out yourself and enjoy your own time.
Exactly, right.
We know that's not acceptable for any gym owner.
Right. The invisible. So I have an invisible suit, by the way, which we can talk about later. But yeah, so it's important for gyms now to sort of branch out a little bit further and be a little more all-inclusive, because you need to, if you go to a CrossFit gym and you have a bad experience, and then you go to another CrossFit gym, just the name CrossFit alone is going to scare people away from coming to your gym. Whereas if you're Naptown Fitness and people are like, oh, I don't want to do CrossFit because it's scary, or because I've heard you get hurt, or because I heard of this. Well, if that's in your name, they're not coming to you. If it's not in your name and you're a brand, look at the big gyms. Invictus is no longer Invictus CrossFit. You know what they are? They're Invictus Fitness. Right. NorCal actually did this after we did it. NorCal Fitness. They're no longer NorCal CrossFit. They have CrossFit at NorCal Fitness, but that's what it is.
OPEX.
And that's exactly
fitness or athletics, or like every brand they drop it, they put some sort of.
Yeah,
so is there any point in maintaining an affiliation?
Yeah,
like at this point, if you don't have an affiliation, like your business will go away.
So I think so, in a sense of from the integrity standpoint. So like we've always been CrossFit through and through. So we've always followed the rules of like. So I guess a question for you, kind of turning on you guys. I like this. Have you guys ever done a CrossFit workout here before?
For sure.
Okay.
I would say, didn't we do like a Memorial Day Murph or something like that?
Yeah, we've done like some hero wads. We've done other CrossFit workouts, etc.
Yeah, I would say that for sure.
So do you feel, is it fair to do CrossFit workouts here, but you're not a CrossFit affiliate?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't think that you don't. Okay. To get you to think about this, is it okay for you to use Russian or Bulgarian programming in your Olympic weightlifting club? Mm-hmm. Right? Because nobody created the weightlifting movements.
For sure.
They just structured and organized it a certain way, right? There's nothing unique about the movements that are involved in Murph, for example. Okay. The uniqueness of Murph is that you're honoring Michael Murphy, right? And Michael Murphy didn't, and those associated with it, I shouldn't just single him out. But Michael Murphy didn't necessarily own a CrossFit. He wasn't necessarily in a CrossFit box, right? He was just, a guy that they're trying to remember. So I don't find anything unreasonable about doing something like that, right? Yeah. And we have a pretty good contingency of military,
for sure.
It's like the same people who would be attracted to that sort of thing. So yeah, that answers that question.
Yeah. So, and I could be wrong on this, and I might have to check this my own little background on this, but I'm pretty sure like Fran, Grace, the girl names of Angie, and all those different workouts are copyrighted, or is it copyrighted, trademarked by CrossFit. So CrossFit technically owns the names of those. So if you guys are doing those in your space, are you legal? That's what I'm saying. From a legal standpoint, are you technically doing CrossFit? So I mean, it's one of those conversations where I don't know the answer. Yeah. That's one of those the legal team at CrossFit HQ would have to figure out. But but I agree with you. Like a push-up's a push-up, right? You add a push-up plus this, and all of a sudden slap a name on it. Like, is that CrossFit?
Right. So I think that this is actually one thing I thought would be interesting to discuss, because I've made the point that at some point, I think CrossFit outgrew its maturity, right? And this happens to a lot of companies that get really big, right? It's happened to If it happened to Starbucks, it can happen to anybody.
Yeah.
They just had to start like closing down shop. But if you think about, there was a point with this legality issue, right? That if you did something or advertise CrossFit, I think that was their big thing.
Mhm.
Like, don't advertise our brand
Yeah, like,
to grow your company. And like, that's not like, we're not doing that. We're not like, hey, come to Lift Lab and do CrossFit. We're not doing any of that shit. You know, we're trying to support.
Have you guys ever hashtag CrossFit before? In
Oh,
Instagram?
100%. But that's like,
Yeah.
you're right. But, and we're doing that because we know that there's people that are following that hashtag that are interested in weightlifting, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And so, just like we've hashtagged the NFL, right? We've hashtagged MLB. We've hashtagged like all kinds of things that are trademarked. Like you can't use the NFL trademark. You can, of course, use the NFL hash mark. Or hashtag, hash mark. So, but anyway, back to this issue of like policing where there was a point when there was like two guys named Russell that basically would just go on social media and like destroy your every beat.
The Russells.com.
Right? Is that still a thing?
Yeah, they're still out there.
Like,
So
defending the brand.
yeah.
So to me, it's like, okay, what if CrossFit HQ has a problem with us performing like a Memorial Day Murph workout because the people at our gym like structure and organize it? You know, is that like a very like valid use of their time? Do I feel like I'm in like some sort of violation type thing? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't lose sleep about it.
Yeah.
Like it,
You know,
I'm not
it's
too
like,
worried about it. It's
and really kind of like once you put it out there, and it's kind of like a free market sort of fitness, right? It's like once you put it out, it's like, are you going to go after the guy in the garage that does frames?
For sure,
Right? You
yeah.
know, like in like what was it, 2000?
well.
Like 10 or 12 when you could do it in your garage.
For sure.
And
Right?
along
And then
those
all of a
same
sudden that
lines, anybody can compete in the open
Yeah,
and do the
unaffiliated,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So you
right.
need to be affiliated to do the things that are like CrossFit specific, right?
Yeah.
To do those workouts.
Well, the reason why I bring it
Yeah,
up, the reason why I ask you guys is because, and you know this, like I kind of, Peter and I being downtown, we sort of brought the fitness
Yeah.
community together. We
Yeah.
have an annual
The round
affiliate,
table.
the round table affiliate owners meeting with all the CrossFit gyms. And you know, you guys are brought up all the time. I've gotten phone calls, I've gotten emails from
Those
people
sons of bitches.
of like what is Lift Lab? What are they doing? Are they CrossFit? And then, well, right, and then
burn them.
we've talked about this 100 times
love it.
before. At the end of the day, like, what's the a rising tide raises all ships, raises all
Absolutely.
ships. It's like,
yes.
who cares?
Yes. Thank you.
Who cares if they're a CrossFit gym? Like, focus on your four walls and make your four walls better,
Can I get an amen?
and then your business will boom. You will do fine if you just focus
100%.
on your people.
100%.
And then it comes all the way back full circle to the first thing you said was community. You know, so
So with that in mind, how has the community changed? Well, just let me just say I fully support what you just said.
Yeah.
Because you and I both know that you've been doing this for a long time. Whether or not there's another CrossFit that opens up down the street, okay, which, you know, the Glassman man is a very free market type guy. He's going to let the market decide what product stands. So there's going to be no regulation on where somebody can open.
oh yeah,
You're at 800 what capital?
922 capital.
922 capital, 923 capital. There could be a CrossFit gym tomorrow. You have no control over that. So whether or not those CrossFits open or close, you're going to get up and you're going to pursue your day with the same vigor.
Yep.
Right? Like you do the flip of it. Every CrossFit gym in Central Indiana has a barbell club, an Olympic weightlifting club of some sort, an Olympic weightlifting team. Okay, now 3 years ago, when I set out, my plan was to grow the Olympic weightlifting community in Indiana. People misinterpreted that as that I would coach every single fucking weightlifter, and it can't happen.
Yes.
But the idea is that if we can spread enough knowledge and share enough ideas, that these people can create their own clubs. Like John David Stein, who I'm sure is listening to this, I don't know how many times I've like talked to him about growing his club, and I think he's doing a great job.
Absolutely.
He's like, hey, what about
He's got
this?
some
What
great
about
lifters
that?
out there. Not
Exactly.
cheap up there, yeah.
And they've come over and lifted here, and they've gone back, and they've still been members of their club. Like it still happens. So anyway, I just wanted
But they're also
to echo that.
they're confident with their gym, and their gym thrives and does phenomenal.
Absolutely.
So I mean,
Well,
too,
but those are.
but that's an important aspect
It
to
is.
that piece.
The two guys that own it are two guys that understand businesses. right? Like that's the difference. Like it's not an emotional thing in terms of like how they react, right? Like you can be emotional about your business because you love it, but it doesn't drive your decision making. It doesn't slow you down, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you guys first opened up, we lost 10 people right away because they wanted to go do weightlifting. So, and you still have probably 5 or 6 of those guys that are still here weightlifting. But guess what? Some of them came back because they wanted to do CrossFit.
100%.
And we're just like, okay, cool. Like,
we sent you 2 members last week.
Yeah.
And did I call you? And you're on the podcast today. I didn't call you back, Jared. You know what? Fuck you for having a successful business. I hope that motherfucker burns. Right? Like this is not. It'll never come out of me. I just don't live that way. I just don't feel that way. But anyway, so let's get back to the community, and I'll ask you how it has it changed or evolved or devolved since you've been like involved.
Well, first of all,
what's evolving in there?
I mean, what is community, right? Like, what's community to you?
It's really just got to be the atmosphere of the gym and sort of the general attitude and like the way people interact with each other and work with each other here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like it's a big thing, for me to control that atmosphere to a certain point. Yeah. So.
What about you? How do you feel? What do you think is community?
I think about it in a little bit, probably bigger, broader picture, because no matter how many gyms are in Indianapolis, and I know I've told you this before, there could be 20 more Lift Labs in Naptown, CrossFit Naptown, Swifts. There could be 20 more of those in the same mile radius that we're in right now, and it still wouldn't be enough to service everybody.
Yeah,
so I look at the community as like, what are you doing to evolve and make it better, right? And like, if you want, everybody wants change, but they don't want to be the change, right? So if I want to change the community that I live in, right, and I want people to be less obese, more apt to go to college, what can I start doing to put that in play?
Yep.
Okay, so it's a little bit bigger picture than just even inside the walls of Lift Lab. But I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and that's probably, like I'm here, how many hours a week?
1 million. 7 million hours. How many hours are in a week?
Probably, there's 186.
You're here 184 of them?
Probably.
I bet you probably
but I mean, like, it's about what's in the 4 walls, and then it's about how you interact outside of that.
Yeah.
Sure.
And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, so you guys both hit it. I mean, when it comes to community, the thing we always talk about is it's people, and it's people, right? Like, it's getting to understand how to communicate with people. It's getting to understand how to read their body language. It's getting to understand what they do in other influences in their life and the people they're associated with. So making sure that you are able to talk to people. Not everyone has that tool to be a people person. Not everyone has the ability to read people's emotions. And I think the second thing that's helped us out with community over time is, since day one, we treated Naptown, CrossFit Naptown originally, now Naptown Fitness, we treat it as a business. So we treat it as in every single person is their own unique individual and have different things going on in life. So Peter and I work hard in not choosing sides or picking sides in politics, in other business decisions, or in people's life decisions. Like, we try to stay as neutral as we possibly can, so we are encompass the entire community, because that's who we're there for. I don't care if you're blue, black, purple, yellow. Like, we are open. We've never turned down a single member ever at our gym. We've even had people transfer to our gym who we knew were going to be say politely a nuisance.
So you've never fired a member?
No, technically we've never fired a member.
Just asked them to leave?
No, we've never even asked anyone to leave. We've had people leave the gym over discrepancies or situations, or they didn't like our coaching or whatever the case may be, but we've never asked someone to leave, and we've never told someone they couldn't join the gym. And it doesn't matter who that person is or what that person believes, and that to me is really what instills what community is.
Sure.
And I think that sort of bleeds through Peter and I's actions the way we kind of run the business.
So has that changed at all since in terms of, and maybe you can speak specifically on your actions or interactions with the other CrossFits? Like, is that sense of community and communication still there?
Yeah, certainly.
You think everybody's kind of chilled out?
Yeah, I think so. So I still meet with, probably 2 or 3 times a month I meet with a different gym owner in the greater Indianapolis area just to, pick each other's brains, just to talk a little bit, see how the community's going, see what's going on. And that's where your name's brought up all the time. What the hell are they doing down at Lift Lab? And then I have to kind of chill them out a little bit and be like, they're good people.
The more pissed off people are the happier I am.
Yeah, but no. So from a general perspective, everyone seems to be good and starting to understand it more. Now, talking about the greater, and I'm kind of jumping ahead into another question, but like jumping into the CrossFit industry itself, and I think you see this and you know this, but like you're starting to see a rapid professionalization of the industry. So
in CrossFit,
specific, and even in more so in kind of your boutique type gyms.
So do you mean that in the sense that there's a greater I'll give you an example. I coached a USA weightlifting course last week up in middle of nowhere, Indiana. It was awesome. The facility was amazing. I shouldn't say middle of nowhere. The name's just escaping me. It was
Granger, Indiana.
It was Kyle Shutt.
It's right north.
Beacon Sports Performance, straight up 31.
I know
Kyle Shutt, you can look him up.
Great,
Great coach.
awesome facility,
Great
awesome
place.
staff. Their base level of understanding, like I could have taught that course in 6 hours. It was a 2-day course because their base level of understanding was so high, right? And that's a compliment to everybody that's in that course.
Yeah.
So do you mean it's raising professionally from that standpoint, or just like people making it a full-time job?
Both. So my interpretation of it is from a professional standpoint of the gym owners. So gym owners back in the day, you were talking about earlier, working out of the garage, and then you go from a garage, you have 1,000 square feet facility, then you knock down walls, goes to 3,000 feet. That's kind of been, Greg Glassman's vision from day one. It's always outgrow your space, which has worked out really well in the last 3, 4, 5, 6 years. Now what you're starting to see is I wouldn't say a takeover, but some of the bigger gyms that have been running this professionally are now starting to either buy out gyms, or those who are doing this as a hobby, have a full-time job, and they come home and they coach 2 or 3 classes in the evening. They're starting to get worn out. You pretty much bought yourself a job rather than having a passion to grow that business.
Sure.
And the second piece to that is one thing that's really changing in the industry as a whole is 6 years ago, I did this because I loved it. It was my passion. I woke up every morning and it's like, I get to go coach people. It wasn't like, hey, I'm going to go to work. I woke up this morning at 5 a.m., went to bed at midnight last night, and not a part of me was like, God, I wish I didn't have to do that. Like, I love this. But what's changed recently is some of the gym owners, the ones that are starting to see success and are doing well, aren't afraid to talk about this big scary word called profit.
Right.
No, in all seriousness.
I hate money.
No, in all seriousness, no. People see a CrossFit gym and they think community, so they think tight-knit, they think small, and that's what it is, and that's what it was. But eventually, in order for you to continue your passion and your love, what do you need to do?
It has to grow.
It has to grow. You have to make money to pay your employees, to pay yourself, to live life, or else what people want won't be there because you can't afford to pay for it.
I know you don't like to talk about politics, but
I'm just not educated.
I know you don't like to have a view. Well, this is very broad based, but there's an old saying. This has been around for a while that if you're not liberal by the time you're 20, you don't have a heart. If you're not conservative by the time you're 30, you don't have a brain. Okay, now you see the play there.
Yep.
But it's thinking about this, and when we all get into the profession, the overwhelming view is liberal, right? We are here to help, provide, and to give, right? And then as you progress through that, you realize that if I want to continue to help, provide, and give, I need to manage this money aspect, the conservative aspects of it, right? I need to have this money to keep my facility going, and that has to be a focal point.
Yep.
And there's another, and I got accused of it, which I find absolutely hysterical. I told my partner about it. He's like, I wish people would see your tax return. But somebody was like, damn, Brian's just doing it for the money. I'm like, what? There's a million other things I could do to have money. And more of it. But anyway, okay, sorry. I digress. But so you guys you talk about all these people that still having conversations with the affiliate owners that are local, maybe even some past that. But that is a compliment, right? So they're coming to you and they're asking, like, look, you guys have done this, you've done it well. Probably the thing they're not saying, but we all know that they're saying, if you own a gym, I'm scared shitless. Like, I don't know if this is going to work. There's money going out. And they're like, they need comfort and understand, like, hey, yeah, you know what? You're going to have to start caring about this money.
Yeah.
Right?
So, I mean, it took a while for, I'm a confident individual, and Peter and I both were like, we're doing this right, we're making money, just like you said, like, you want to see my tax return, I'm not making that much money. I mean, I could easily be going out there and, like you said, find another job and make a ton more money. But it's that passion side of things that's really kind of helped us. But like, one thing that's really within the last year and a half, 2 years is seeking help. And what I mean by that is just because you're doing well doesn't mean you can't be doing better. And I mentioned it earlier about mentorships and so forth. There's so many opportunities out there to find somebody to lean on. Like, you can't be good at everything. And I think you guys both agree with this, but you can't be good at everything. So you have to surround yourselves with people who are better than you. And surrounding yourself with people who are better sometimes means like, hey, you know what? You take this whole part of the program, you deal with it. I don't want to touch it because I know you're way better than this at me. And the one thing we've learned in the last year or so was to hire a mentor. Sure. And so we literally pay for a mentorship program, and people see how successful or how well Naptown's doing. But it's like, it's not all us. It's not like it's all of our brain power and we've thought of all these ideas. We're borrowing from different areas. We borrow from different spots.
Who's the mentor doing
so no, that's absolutely. So we go through Two Brain Business, which is Chris Cooper, and he's out of Canada and has a huge, they focus on CrossFit businesses,
Sure.
but they're actually working themselves into more general businesses as well. So it's not just going to be the fitness industry, and they do a phenomenal job. There's other ones out there. I mean, you've got Mad Lab, which I think Notch 8 works with Mad Lab, and that's more of a system than a mentorship,
Mm-hmm.
but it's essentially a program. You've got Barbell Logic, you have 321 Go Project, you have, I think WTF Gym Talk is another guy who's stealing everyone else's stuff and making it his own. So that was kind of a joke. I don't know if you guys ever seen him on Facebook.
I've not.
Now it's the business of helping businesses and CrossFit.
Yeah. So
yeah.
But what's neat though is we've met with two different gyms, and I've met with two different potential affiliate owners in the last month, and they're like, "What do we need to do? Like, what's one thing to take away right now?" It's like, there's literally these mentorship programs. You can go in and there's modules, there's different programs. You can literally go in, and one of the modules in one of them is how to run a successful gym. And it's literally every document you need, every single thing you know.
Here's the X's and O's.
Exactly. And like, did you have that 6 years ago?
Hell no.
Exactly. And like, so there's a part of me where I'm like, I'm jealous, where I'm like, gosh, I would have had that because I wouldn't have made the 50 million mistakes we made.
I would have been good 6 years ago if I would have had a podcast to listen to.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's so much stuff that's just
absolutely.
available at your disposal. Being uninformed is not an
When I'm in the shower, I'm listening to podcasts.
gosh.
When I'm
Right?
walking
It's
my
like-
dog, I'm listening to podcasts. When I'm mowing the lawn, I'm listening to podcasts. When I'm driving, I'm listening to podcasts. And like,
exactly.
and it's not just fitness related. It's I'm trying to think of a couple. Tim Ferriss. I mean, Tim Ferriss is one where he's always kind of dropping knowledge bombs out there.
And he interviews just a wide variety of people.
Yeah, how I built this. You want to learn how to build a business,
Built
any
This
type of
great.
business. How I built this is going to help you phenomenally from that aspect.
The first one of those I listened to was Mark Cuban. That was brilliant.
It probably was. I listened to Sam Adams. Jim Cook.
Yeah.
From Sam Adams yesterday, 38 minutes long, and I was just like, boom.
Well, and I think like the part of the thing for the entrepreneur is, when you listen to that shit, you realize, okay, these feelings that I'm having, they're normal.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like everybody has
Whether
moments where it's
you're
just like,
$500,000
holy
in revenue
shit.
or
Right.
500 million in revenue,
Right.
like everyone's going through the same.
It's just like the problems are the same.
Yep.
absolutely.
No matter what.
Absolutely. But back to
Sorry, I'm a tangent.
Yeah, wait,
I literally go
so
like this. but-
we're on community. I want to get home. I just want to get home a little bit on this idea of like, do you still really feel like there's a hardcore value in you being CrossFit affiliated?
Yeah,
There's no wrong answer.
No, I absolutely
We're
do.
not going to report you
I
to
think
the Russells.
no, I think it's invaluable. I don't think we'll ever get rid of the affiliation. I mean, everyone knows affiliation for a year is $3,000. So yeah, when that fee hits, but guess what? Like, you can go to a franchise. I'm not sure how much Orange Theory and some of those others are, but some of these franchises are $30,000, $50,000.
Sure.
So like $3,000 is a slap on the wrist compared, and to have the brand equity that's involved with that CrossFit name. And we're CrossFit through and through. Our mission statement from day one is,
We're CrossFit.
we're CrossFit and we believe in CrossFit. And in all honesty, if you do CrossFit correctly, you should never hurt yourself. If you start off with a PVC pipe, if you focus on mechanics, focus on mobility, focus on breathing, learning how to brace yourself correctly, which no one does, and then finally work into the load, the intensity, it's the perfect program for fitness.
You guys had the best sign on your door.
Which check your ego. Yeah,
On the back of the Delaware
check your
door,
ego.
you walk in, right?
Check your ego at the door.
Okay.
But guess what? People don't.
No, right. Well,
That sign still doesn't.
Right.
it's like use common sense. Go pass on that.
This morning I had
today.
to check like 17 egos already.
Right.
But anyways, talking about that piece of de-affiliation, your brand. So your brand is your business, right? So it's really, really important that CrossFit is one of our brands and it's one of our programs. So that is our business. That's what we're based off of.
Do you look at the CrossFit statistics, right, on the amounts of affiliation, ownership, membership? I know that, speaking of Mad Lab, John actually, it was a while ago. He asked me about it, and I said, "Oh, just give me the brief rundown."
Yeah.
And he ran through some statistics that Mad Lab had put out. And then he told me about what the Mad Lab thing was. Then I went and listened to a Mad Lab podcast. And ironically, it is really similar to what we do.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
The only difference is, and we actually offered this at one point, was for people to, when you sign somebody up, you take half of the revenue for the entirety of that member's lifetime at your gym.
Yeah.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
But that we gave the staff the option. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So very similar. But anyway. Golly, what was I going to say?
That happens.
Holy smokes!
Mad
You look at the
Labs.
statistics on
That's affiliates.
the stats of the affiliates, and does that encourage you or discourage you to potentially expand? I'm not sure this is truthful or not, but I had heard that there was another CrossFit in Indy. I know there's one for sure that's for sale now.
Okay.
And then
Well, three of them just changed hands within the last 2 months.
separate from that one. Okay, and this is what I'm talking about. So there was an exchange up in the Westfield,
Yep.
Carmel area. There's 3 gyms changed hands. There's one, if you were to go up US 37, there's one on the way up to to the north side of Indy.
Okay.
That is for sale for sure.
Yeah.
And then I heard that there's one on the south side of Indy that is possibly up for sale. And I don't know the validity because I'm not really dialed in
For sure.
to that. But does that encourage you or discourage you? Because it just to me, this is just red flags, right? With the option being, what are you buying?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Could I just start this myself cheaper?
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
That's bullshit.
So I mean, 4 years ago, if you would have asked me what my vision is for Naptown, it would have been Naptown North, Naptown East, Naptown West, Naptown South, downtown. Now we're focused on our community. We're focused on we're going to be at 2 different locations: Capital, downtown, pretty much Naptown Fitness Downtown, Naptown Monon. Because what we've learned is, just like communities people, your business is people as well. And,
Sure.
and if we don't have the right people in place to go run a facility, as soon as you have another facility, you have another headache with a toilet, another headache with a garage door, another headache with, staff or community, whatever it could be. So we're really focused on that. To answer the question in the sense of, is it worth going to buy these gyms? Is that kind of where you're at
Yeah,
with that?
exactly.
So it depends on what you're buying. So what I mean by that is, are you just buying a lease? And this is what we found out, because we've been approached probably 5, 6, 7 times in the last 4 years to buy out gyms. And we did. We ended up buying the Monon location up there. But it really just depends. Are you buying a lease in a sense of, could you just open up right next door to them and have your own lease and your own structure and build your own community and then kind of get
that's
those
what I'm
members?
getting at, right?
Exactly. So it really depends on what that brand already is established. And then even with that being said, and this is a struggle that we've had at our Monon location a little bit, is there's every single location, every single gym has a different atmosphere and has a different community depending on the demographics of that location. And it's something that's been a challenge for us is to, the Monon location has a little bit more family oriented, a little bit more neighborhood oriented, where our downtown location is a little bit more business professional. It's a little bit younger because a lot of people are moving.
Transient,
Exactly.
right, yeah.
Indianapolis has become that transient city where a lot of people are wanting to be downtown for those, for the bars, for the business, and all that good stuff, which is great. So it's two different type of communities within one big community. So talk about challenges we faced. That's one of the biggest challenges we still face is how do we make this all one Naptown community within our business. So buying another gym, it takes a lot of investment, time and emotionally to go in and try to change that culture. Whereas you're almost better off just opening up a new gym in a new space, having your own location, your own rules, your own regulations. And because an issue you're going to have is if you have a gym member from this gym switching over this gym from this gym member, and all of a sudden it's almost like this hodgepodge. You're gonna have so many different thoughts, philosophies where it's like, hey, well, my gym does this, or hey, my gym doesn't warm up like that, or hey, my gym does, and it's just like,
this is how we do it.
Exactly.
But you say it nicely.
I say it much more nicely.
Non-combative.
Exactly.
But I'm just like,
there's no MFers or
shut the fuck up, lower your leg, go.
But I think
I'm just kidding.
But I'm like, part of it is having like that as the business philosophy, and like not necessarily being like, like part of your philosophy, but I mean, this is the way the business is run.
Correct.
And I mean, this is the way the business is structured. This is the way the program is structured. So you kind of detach your emotion, kind of like yourself away from it. So when they come in, they're like, you don't like this, you don't do that. You like the way that I did it here. It's no, this is the way that the program works.
Yeah, and it's really challenging to not get defensive.
It's really tough
because you've been doing
not give in.
Well, yeah, and
right?
you've been doing this for we've been doing it for 6 years now. And it's like we have a successful model that's working for us, and then we know it works because we've been doing it. And then
100%.
Someone else comes in and wants to do something completely different. It's like,
It's
like
no,
I
this is
didn't
the
pick this.
program.
This is what they did.
Well, and that's
You need to do it.
we haven't even gotten to
I was online.
we haven't even gotten to the
This is
competitive CrossFit side of things, but that's
Let's just go ahead and get there. Because that falls under this broad category of topics I gave you, the current state of CrossFit.
I took some notes here. So
we'll let you have that diatribe.
How has my feelings of CrossFit changed over the last 5 or 6 years? I think the question was. Well, competitive CrossFit. This is me personally. This is not me talking as a gym owner. This is me talking as a personal individual that does CrossFit. Has been doing CrossFit for over 6 years now, 6 to 7 years. I think competitive CrossFit is one of the more detrimental pieces to the whole fitness puzzle, the whole CrossFit puzzle, because you destroy your body physically doing this amount of volume over time, and you potentially can destroy yourself mentally. There's a lot of stresses that you put on your body. There's a lot of stresses you put on time, the stresses you put on family. I had shoulder surgery last November. I'm having ankle foot surgery October 13th. My back, I compressed L4, L5 vertebrae. And a lot of that is just my own ego. And I just kept going and going and going because I still see people being good at CrossFit. And the tough part I have now is I see a lot of people, and this is every single CrossFit owner will say exactly this. As a CrossFit owner, you see people who come in, first thing they do is, hey, I saw CrossFit on ESPN. Like, I'm going to the games next year. And it's hard to be like, no, you're not. Because there might be 1 or 2 people in the entire world who found CrossFit and then maybe make it to regionals and potentially get close to making it to the games. 1 or 2 people in the world every year, and that's probably not even a true statistic at this point. So how have things changed for me? Like competitive CrossFit, we still foster an environment where people want to get better. I'm all about getting better. I'm all about improving your capacity. If you need more than just our classes, we have a lot of other programs. We have accessory work. We have things you can do. And I'm totally happy to do that. If you want to get better and be competitive in a local circuit, I'm completely supportive of that. But as a gym owner, flipping scripts now, as a gym owner, who is your best member? Is it
right, for sure.
General public member who does this because they want to be healthy when they're 60, 70, 80 years old? Or is it the competitive CrossFitter who's taking up all the space, snatching, throwing the barbell, doing the muscle ups, and going over the rig?
Telling you you're an idiot.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right,
Yeah, the
I mean,
programming,
that's what-
doing their own programming or
Yeah.
doing Invictus or
I'm gonna do what
Contra.
Invictus has on the online today. Trust me, it's better for me because it's better for everybody that's on Invictus' team.
Do you know? So when we made it to regionals and finished 2 points away from making it to the games in 2012, guess what programming we did?
None.
Main site.
We did CrossFit Naptown's programming. You know who programmed that?
You.
Peter and I.
You're right.
And we made it 2 points away from making it. Yeah, the games changed quite a bit, and it's a little bit more intense now. But it's the concept of, just do the work. It's be the athlete you can be, and and move correctly, move with efficiency, and you'll be fine from that standpoint. But yeah, I can go on forever on this
Well,
one.
there's magical mishmashes of exercises that, if you put one too many pull-ups in here in 52 little meters here,
Yep.
it just throw off your whole training.
Well,
out,
it's the world we live in.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
everyone wants everything, 10 minutes ago. They don't, they want it right now. They don't understand that, this is a 3-4 year process just for you to possibly make regionals at this point.
We had an athlete show up here who said, after about maybe 6 months of CrossFit, came in, was cleaning roughly 100 kilos, 220 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I'm just going to spend the next 6 to 9 months getting my clean and jerk around 360 or 370. Then I'll be able to make the games. I was like listening, and at first I thought it was a joke. He was serious.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I don't want to, give you a false expectation, but that would be better improvement than anybody here has ever had. And we have a few good weightlifters, right? And
Pretty good.
Just try to get them to a reasonable state of mind, because you're not going to match the expectation, right? And I think that is why people leave your gym. So we've talked about, members have gone from here to your gym and vice versa. And like I always tell our staff, when people leave our gym, it's because we didn't give them exactly what they needed for them to stay. Sometimes we don't do our part, right? We could have done more to give them what they needed. Other times we couldn't have done a thing different.
And sometimes you don't want to do a thing different. Right?
Absolutely. That comes down to who you are,
sacrifices.
right?
Like the rest.
So this is something you and I have talked about. I mean, since day one, I think Peter and I actually put you on blast and challenged you. And that one, you remember that one meeting you referenced? It's I remember asking you, what's your mission statement?
Who are you?
What's your
do you wanna
identity?
be? Right,
what do you
for
want to
sure,
be?
for
And
sure.
that's what you need to then live off of and then project onto people as your brand.
Right. And that was, and I 100% remember that. That conversation obviously had a lot of impact. We both ended up not going through with it, right?
Yeah.
And it came down to that. It's what identity are we creating?
Answer that. What identity is Lift Lab?
Yeah, so Lift Lab will always be a sports performance facility, okay? And the idea being that first, training adds value to your life.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't become your life, okay? That is always going to occur with sound scientific principles. A huge background in education, sports performance coaching, that's always going to be the structure. Our goal is to help you achieve your goal. And with those three things as the backdrop, we feel like we can service anybody.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, but in that,
So you guys, that's going to be pretty much any way to use fitness to help you achieve your goal. You'll use fitness.
Yeah, for sure, right? So
Yeah,
if you came here and you were a one-off, let's say you want to be the competitive CrossFitter, right? And then I'm going to apply the principles that I know in the best way that I see fit for you to succeed, or I'm going to give you advice based on those principles. Okay, this would be the same for a weightlifter that comes in. I can't force you to do the training, you to recover. I can't force you to eat right. I can't control all those things.
Yep.
All I can do is give you the best advice on the things that I know and the things I feel confident coaching. And you remember when I worked with Brandon, who I ran into at the CrossFit Games, back in however many years ago that was, when he was
historic, right?
Yes, yeah. And he was trying to repeat going to the CrossFit Games, and he was having a specific issue with rope climbs, right? And I called you and I was like, I don't know the first fucking thing about climbing this damn rope other than I did it when I was 8. Can you show him some things, right? when he came down and we worked on it and things like that. So I've only always felt good talking about the things that I know, right? And I give advice based on that, right? If you want me to look at CrossFit from an objective standpoint on how I think you should develop the competitive athlete, I'm going to tell you it goes sequentially. And then as you try to peak for your competition, you have to do CrossFit, right? So, but anyway, that's the idea. And the same thing applies to if you want to be a fat loss type person, if you want to be a weightlifter, if you want to like just move healthy, be pain free. But I don't like it when people get their identity of who they are wrapped up in their gym, right? It needs to be a portion of who you are. This goes for like the elite weightlifters because when you're elite at something, you have an understanding that it's terminal. It's going to be 4 years. So like even like your soccer career, that's quote unquote elite. Not everybody plays Division I soccer, but it's over at the end of 4 or 5 years. Weightlifting is the same thing. It has a little longer run.
It's a finale to it.
Exactly. And then maybe you stay with the gym and you stay training, but the intensity is not the same and those sort of things, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And it goes back to like you're talking about like what the ideal number is. Well, everybody made the assumption that I would only be fulfilled if I was training elite athletes because that's what my background was. But it's not. Like the reality of it is when you help somebody achieve their goal and you change their life, that's a positive thing. We have 2 kids here right now that I've worked with basically as their guide, okay, to their program. And they're both pretty good weightlifters. But the bigger goal and achievement has been one of them is about to graduate from Purdue, which is like a huge thing for his family. He's right here in Indianapolis, very underserved.
Awesome.
Like, and another one is still working through graduating. And like those are the things like, okay, we've used weightlifting to help life, right? I feel better about that than helping, professional baseball player play 2 more years so they can make $24 million. Like I've done that goal, but it's not something that like enthralls me or makes me feel like, it's cool. Do I like going to professional sporting events and standing on fucking sidelines and like seeing like the top? Yeah, I love it. Right?
Acting important.
Yeah, it's fun as
cool.
shit. Like, dude, I went to spring training. I got to sit next to Bo Jackson and George Brett and watch Bo Jackson smash home runs with like a huge beer belly, like 50 fucking years old. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I remember that shit and I love it. But like on the day-to-day fulfillment thing, I have much closer, more personal relationships with kids like that.
So a CrossFitter walks in your door and says, "Hey, I want to do CrossFit." What's your response?
Well, we 100% always tell them that we're not a CrossFit affiliate, right? Because if you walk in and you see group fitness and like I talked about all the things I believed in terms of group fitness, you see group fitness and now like because of the overwhelming popularity, if people see a rig in your gym, they assume that you're a CrossFit,
Or
right?
a tire.
Right, exactly. There's like these things, So we always tell them like we're not a CrossFit. We have a group fitness program, and here's how it's structured. And then we talk to them like about their goals, and here's how we have this set up, right? If somebody came in and they were like, I want to be an elite individual competitor, we probably wouldn't have them. Like we would have a different path for them, right? Than group fitness. Group fitness is designed a little bit different. And I would kind of ask you this last question. We're talking about the difference between CrossFit and competitive and the sport of CrossFit, right? Does it ruin your business? Does it have the potential to ruin your business, the sport of CrossFit?
I don't think it has potential to ruin your business. I think it just adds another challenge, another obstacle. So there are times when people walk into the door and they're like, "Yeah, I've seen this on TV," or if you talk to someone generally and say CrossFit, and then right away their natural inclinations to be like, "Oh no, I don't want to do CrossFit. That's too crazy for me."
Sure.
So what the obstacle is now the educational piece, and I think that's one thing that I think all fitness centers, whether you're weightlifting, CrossFit, struggle with, is because the general public, especially here in Indianapolis, Indiana, like we're the 48th most obese
bunch of fatties,
and it blows my mind that the news stations and newspapers, magazines around here, no one really. I wish we were more like Denver, more outdoorsy city, things going on, because there's so much opportunity here. So there needs to be a bigger educational piece here in Indianapolis as a whole for the general public. Because when people walk into the gym and the first thing they say is like, oh, I don't want to do that because of this. It's like, well, no, let me educate you on how we do things here and explain to you and have a conversation with somebody. That's where you're going to start to break down those barriers. Yeah. And that's why I don't, personally for me, CrossFit will never ruin that for my business because I can speak intelligently on how CrossFit can be successful and how not just CrossFit, but like, our SWIFT program, which is our 45-minute intensity program, our yoga facility, which complements everything else that we're beating up our bodies. Now let's lean things out. So like that conversation I can have with people openly and then educate them. So
sure.
Does that sort of answer that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it kind of brings back the point where like, if you're talking about the message from your four walls, like once somebody comes into that and you're not letting, CrossFit HQ tell everybody else like what it is. Yeah. So as long as like you're louder than everybody else,
for sure, then
that person's going to get that message, and that's all you can really do.
Yeah.
Like somebody's going to come in with the exposure to X, Y, or Z, but if you can talk to them and you can say, "This is our mission. This is what we do," then you have a fighting chance of getting that person to do it.
Yeah. The hardest part is communicating with someone over the phone, communicating with someone over email.
What's your price?
Yeah, exactly, right? Like
free, dude.
My favorite question of all time is the first one's always what is priced, and right away it's like it's not about price, it's about how much do you value your life?
Right.
And that's the question we need to be asking people is like, what price do you put on your life? Because if $175 a month is too much for you, then 10 years from now, when a metabolic condition hits you, whether it's diabetes, hypertension, whatever the case may be, would you rather go back 10 years and invest in your life, or would you rather?
100%.
So you have to value those things.
Yeah.
So, all right, we got to wrap this up. We're getting long.
Sorry, I know.
No.
We could do part 1, part 2, part 3.
What are these rapid fire questions? I'm curious.
You
have for us?
They weren't rapid fire.
Okay,
We're good. So
favorite dinosaur?
I was just gonna put you on. Do you have your CrossFit level 1?
I do. 100%.
Nice.
100%.
I never knew that.
I do. It's actually hanging in my office. People are shocked.
Do you have a level 1?
I do not. No.
Would you get one?
At this point, I probably would not, just because there's other certifications that I want to pursue, and it's really just a financial game.
I will say this about the level 1.
How long would you do it?
Right before we open this up.
Okay.
Or as this was, maybe once this was open. I don't know. Right around the same time I had.
Because you're getting ready to affiliate.
It was going to be an option, right?
So,
but I went into it with an open mind, and it was the best way I can describe it is if what you saw on the internet about CrossFit was what they did at the level 1 seminar, everybody would be a huge fan of CrossFit.
Yep. And they're getting there. And that's one thing we missed earlier. And I know we're short on time, but Peter and I actually met with the CEO of CrossFit, which isn't Greg Glassman, by the way. So he stepped down earlier this year. His name is Jeff Kane, and we met with the COO, Bruce Edwards, at a private brunch during the CrossFit Games on a Saturday morning, which was phenomenal. And we were able to sit down and chat with them. And one of their biggest missions and goals and visions right now is, this CrossFit's a media company, right?
For sure.
So one of their biggest visions is to, from a top-down approach, to start sharing some of the knowledge they're learning, whether it's, lawsuits. They're squashing that whole lawsuit about how CrossFit's dangerous, which I'm sure you guys have heard about before. The other piece is they're starting to communicate with affiliates a lot more, which is awesome from our standpoint, because we never really had communication from them. I always recommend to people, go to the CrossFit, CrossFit.com. You can go sign up for the email of the day. So they send an email every single night at 8 p.m. and it's free to get. And there's so much information on there. It's mind-boggling.
Does the journal is that still going?
The journal is phenomenal now.
Really?
So it sort of fell by the wayside for about 5 years there. Where it's just the content wasn't as informative, wasn't as educational. It was just kind of just content. Now it's starting to get back to the piece. They're really huge on the metabolic side of things where, don't even be started on sugar and diabetes and all that sort of thing where Coca-Cola, Pepsi are just killing people left and right. But anyways, CrossFit Journal, sign up for it. Sign up for the email a day. It's free. So much education from that side of things that are coming from the top down now, which is super, super exciting and encouraging. Awesome. And there's a lot of other pieces too that eventually is going to help the industry, which I'm super excited about. Healthcare is one that they talked about. And I could go into that. I don't want to now because it's going to take 20 minutes. and also the fact that the brand of CrossFit itself, the first time ever that the affiliates outside of the U.S. is outnumbers of affiliates inside the U.S. That happened in July. So I don't know if I was supposed to announce that, but that's an official. I heard that straight from the CEO.
It's a whole lot of affiliates.
So their goal is 25,000 in 5 years, and probably 80% of that growth is going to come where? Outside of the U.S. So there's going to be a huge international play on CrossFit to build a brand, which is super cool.
Some of those are pretty sweet. If you go over to like Dubai or so, and like
He's
you look
going.
at those,
It's funny.
That's
We literally just booked a ticket to Dubai last night.
It's like you look at that.
That's why
thing
he's
on the
going.
beach. It's like it's not.
He was only going to go see
Yeah,
the
right. I'm
CrossFit.
just going to hit across. flying to Dubai.
He wants to get their
CrossFit.
policy on drop-in fees. Okay.
No, we're going over Christmas for 10 days. My wife and I,
nice.
so I'm stoked.
We didn't talk about your wife.
Hey,
We'll have to do part 2. She's a wonderful lady.
She's
Very
awesome.
nice.
We didn't even talk about Peter, my business partner.
But nothing. It's, we're over. We're
Sorry.
Okay.
My bad.
Lots of fun.
All right. Well, we will sign off. We will do part 2 next time with Jared.
Appreciate it. Thank you guys.
You're welcome.